Hey folks, this is Jake Davis with some old school wrestling. It is August, so since SummerSlam is not going to be this year, this August, we've already had SummerSlam. It was in July this year. It was a good show too. I decided to talk about the original Hog Wild from WCW, live from the Sturgis Backyard Rally in South Dakota. An event that I attended back in 2002 and even got to meet Goldberg. Unfortunately, I was only 17 years old, so I couldn't fully enjoy Sturgis. You know what I mean? There are lots of... Anyone who's ever covered these videos, and I talked about the 98 Sturgis, was the first pay-per-view I ever got to see, previously on one of these 2 years ago. Look, man, all I'm going to say about this stuff is most of the YouTube videos, people who talk about pro wrestling on YouTube, are British, Irish, Scottish. They're Europeans, and I'm sorry, but it's just not the perspective you need. They don't understand American biker culture, nor would I expect them to. I don't understand the monarchy. Why do you pay a family who has no responsibilities and no official power just to literally lord over you? Why do you do this? It doesn't make sense to me. They're not special. Anyhow, this, no, you shouldn't go around fucking with bikers, nor should you just openly trust them either. But this is a culture of a world of people who truly embrace the American concept of anything you tell them they cannot do. You can't say this, you can't wear that, you cannot behave in this manner. They will do purely to spite you. Doesn't mean that's their actual beliefs. It's just they trying to rattle your chain. And as far as this, don't really understand, not really part of this stuff, that applies to Brian Zane too. I love Brian Zane's channel. He's one of my favorite YouTubers. But he's from Portland. And Portland's not America. I mean, it's barely even Earth. No offense to anyone from Portland, but you know this to be so. Anyhow, the attendance here is roughly considered around 5,000, but who really knows, because there was no fucking gate. They just let the bikers come in, which is the real bad idea about this show. Yes, there's already a standing attraction and already a standing crowd there, but you make no gate money. You know what I mean? And you just take the risk that the people attending are going to actually give a shit about wrestling. And people have talked about how the bikers didn't really seem to be into it and all this shit to understand wrestling. Well, now you're making assumptions about people. They're going to go to the wrestling show during the middle of this festival with all of this shit going on, but they're going to go see the 3-hour wrestling show because they don't care about wrestling. It wasn't the only thing going on that day, you know what I mean? And also, it's important to remember that before this pay-per-view even started, this crowd had sat through 8 matches. 8 matches that were all aired on WCW Saturday night on TBS. And yeah, sure, all 8 of these matches combined still did not clock in at 30 minutes. But it doesn't change the fact that you had to watch 8 fucking wrestling matches. So, all that being said, the commentating team is Tony Schiavone, Bobby the Brain Heenan, the American Dream, Beth Rose, baby. Our opening bout is for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, our first of 4 title matches here tonight. With the Ultimo Dragon, not calling him Ultimate Dragon, fuck you, with Sonny Ono in his corner defending against Rey Mysterio Jr., the WCW, challenging Rey Mysterio Jr., who's the WCW Cruiserweight Champion. Rey had this great Spider-Man look for this. I don't know if this was the first. This was definitely before Halloween Havoc 97, but I'm not sure if this was the first time Rey ever did his superhero cosplay, which everyone does now. Everyone does it now. But this was really cool because I was watching this show with my daughters. They just saw Spider-Man the whole time. It's Spider-Man! Every time there's a big jump, Spider-Man! It was really great. It was very cute. This is, for my money, the best match of the show, which is, yeah, sure, there's nothing wrong with the opening match being the show stealer, but it does put, it can affect the rest of the card easily. Ray retains with a top rope Hurricane Rana in 11 minutes and 35 seconds. Like I said, excellent match. Pause. We see Mean Gene pimping the hotline, which was of course, is one of my favorite parts of the old WCW shows. 1-900-909-9900. Kids, get your parents' permission to call. Where he's basically just shelling out the dirt sheets. I don't know why I enjoy these. It's just kind of a nostalgic thing for me, having Mean Gene pimping that hotline every month. I love it. Up next is an implosion of the tag team Fire and Ice. Scott Norton taking on Ice Train. Look, man, as I've said before, I like Scott Norton. He's a proper powerhouse of a pro wrestler. And he's all in as far as, with the business. He was serious about what he did. But he was one of those guys who could, if you put him in there with a guy like Sting or Randy Savage, he's going to have a good match. But Ice Train never had a good match with anybody. Bret Hart couldn't get a good match out of this guy. I'm sorry, guys. Ice Train sucked. There's also their manager around this time was Teddy Long. And it seemed weird to me that Teddy wasn't anywhere involved in this match at all. Ice Train goes in to the match with a taped up shoulder. Scott Norton is able to lock in an arm bar, and Ice Train taps out. Scott Norton wins by submission. This would eventually lead to a submission match at Fall Brawl, which I have covered. I covered last year. By the way, this match went 5 minutes, 5 seconds. The Cruiserweight title match went 11 minutes, 35 seconds. We get this pre-recorded interview of Ric Flair basically talking about the impact of Hulk Hogan joining the NWO and how there's only room for one supergroup in the WCW. And it seems like they're planting the seeds for a Four Horsemen versus NWO match at War Games, but being over a year before we actually got that match. The match won't happen until War Games 97, Fall Brawl 97, and it ended up being the NWO's B team defeating a Four Horsemen team that did not have Arn Anderson. So it kind of feels like it didn't count. Besides, man, it's genuinely enraging when you stop to realize that Buff Bagwell has a pay-per-view main event victory over Ric Flair. It's wrong. It's just wrong. It should have never happened. We also get an ad for the Hog Wild t-shirts. Now, I understand pimping the shirts for your event, sure. But it always seems to me like that'd be something you want to do in-house at the event. Or in field in this case. But it'd be something you do at the event. Why would you have a commercial promoting an event that's already taken place to people that were not there? Why would this be advertised? It just seemed like, no, it's a waste of TV time. It's only 30 seconds, but it's a waste of time. Up next, we get excuse me. We get the Battle of the Bikes. It's Bull Nakano with Sonny Ono versus Madusa. This is one of the few pay-per-view women's matches you'll see ever in WCW. WWE's had probably more pay-per-view matches, women's pay-per-view matches this year already than WCW had in their entire 10-year run. A stipulation here, both women have their own chosen hog with, representing their character and country and whatnot. And whoever wins gets to smash the loser's motorcycle with a sledgehammer, which is, considering the setting where you are, no matter who wins, maybe a quick way to get your ass kicked. The finish is horribly botched. It looks like it's a botched finish, and referee just takes it home, and it wasn't supposed to happen. Bull Nakano hits a German suplex. Medusa kicks out, but Bull Nakano's shoulders are on the mat, so the match is over. There's a lot of confusion here. The crowd doesn't know how to react, because they don't know what the fuck happened. And eventually, Medusa struggles and kind of fails to bash the bike with the sledgehammer. Sledgehammers are hard to swing, and motorcycles are sturdy motherfuckers. Maybe it wasn't a great idea to send a woman out there to do it. Not to be insulting, but yeah, it's... Hell, man, I've seen big 300-pound burly motherfucking men who have trouble swinging a fucking sledgehammer. I mean, it's a goddamn sledgehammer. Are you kidding me? It's not one of these Triple H sledgehammers. It was a sledgehammer. Anyhow, we see the Steiner brothers on the CompuServe thing. This is another just... the only memories I have of CompuServe are these wrestlers struggling to use it. I mean, by the time I got into using the internet and stuff like that, I was 11 during the events of this show. So, I mean, shouldn't be online by myself anyway. Or should your 11-year-old be now? Just saying. But it's just Steiner Brothers was funny. It looked like they were struggling. Oh, the fuck is this kind of thing. I enjoyed it. It was funny. This will quit a little bit. Up next is easily the longest match of the night. A grudge match between Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit. This match has been building up for a while, it seemed. Malenko comes to the ring with Jimmy Hart, but Jimmy Hart doesn't stay at ringside. It was weird. And Chris Benoit is accompanied by Miss Elizabeth and Woman. And it's difficult to go back and watch Chris Benoit matches as it is. Just had to put that mental block in. Just remember he was a great performer. Enjoy the match. But when he has a woman with him at ringside, there's no putting it past. It's on your mind the whole match. What happened. And, may he rot in hell. I don't give a fuck if he was sick. I don't care. I have no fucking sympathy. I wrapped my head around it. I dealt with it. Tried to think, well, maybe he was a victim. Well, he was a victim of these things, but these people, he had a mental disorder. But he murdered his family. Okay, so let's just move on. About Chris Benoit. That's my official opinion. This match goes 26 minutes and 55 seconds. There's a 20-minute time limit. Time limit expires. They add another 5 minutes. That expires. And they've completely lost the crowd by the second restart of the match. Because why? I mean, what was the point of the sudden death anyways if there was going to still be a time limit? And why do another extra 5 minutes? It just... this kind of shit was lame when they did it way back in the Crockett promotion days. The restarts and stuff like that. I never liked it. One thing I've always liked about WWE, they don't really deal with time limits that often, which just sucks when they do. Fuck, I'm getting the hiccups. Sucks when they do deal with time limits because it's WWE. Here, a match is going to have a time limit. Well, now you know it's going to be a draw. Instantly gives away the finish. And truthfully, it's the same with this. Eventually, in the second restart, Benoit is able to get a roll-up or some bullshit and win. It's... Considering the match went too long. These guys have great chemistry together, and they had a good match. But the second restart just pissed off the fans. And I agree with them. Pause. Up next is the WCW Tag Team Championships, one of the greatest rivalries in the history of the company. The Steiner brothers challenging the defending champs, Harlem Heat. 2 of my 5 all-time greatest tag teams. Throwing the Dudleys, Tully and Arn, and Edge and Christian, brawl time. Oh man, what a match that would be. Man, that'd be cool. Anyhow, Harlem Heat are accompanied to the ring by Sensational Sherry and the real Colonel Parker. Fuck that Tom Hanks motherfucker. And look, the real story here is Booker T and Stevie Ray over the years. I talked on their podcast about not enjoying this match, feeling like they were in a hostile environment. The crowd was chanting racist things at them. Now, I cannot hear any of these racist slurs personally watching it because, who knows, maybe it was edited out by Peacock or even WWE before it or even home video distributors before that, possibly. Maybe the bikes just drowned it out and you had to be there to hear it. And I don't want to speak for these men, but I will say that maybe the reason the crowd was booing you is because you were the bad guys. I'm just saying. Now, you could argue the crowd was completely behind Hogan in the main event, but he was taking on the Giant, But the Giant was a heel too at this time. It was a heel versus heel match. Giant was just kind of the de facto face because he represented WCW. But, I mean, in any other arena, or any arena in Madison Square Garden during that time, Giant was still been booed against Hogan. Even if Hogan was the heel, Giant was only it was less than a year into his career, was already a 2-time world champion. He was green, he had a habit of having the same match every show, and Hulk Hogan was the biggest star the industry had ever seen so far. That being said, well, fuck, man, it's the Heat versus Steiners. It's a barn burner. Fucking great. It's a great match. I loved it. I thought the finish was silly. Sherry goes to throw powder in the eyes of, was it Ricky? No, I think it was Scott. Oh, it doesn't matter. Throws him in the eyes, but Booker gets the powder in his eyes too. But he falls on top. They get the win while Stevie Ray holds back the other Steiner brother. And the Heat retain the titles. Like I said, very fun match. Goes 17 minutes and 53 seconds. I don't know if I mentioned the Battle of the Bikes match went 5 minutes, 21 seconds. I'm going to stop looking that part up because I always forget it by right away. Up next was for the United States Championship. Eddie Guerrero challenges the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, who just had his last match last weekend, which, by the way, which was his, not counting his other last match in 2008 or his other last match in 1994. It's his last match for now. Anyhow, Rick comes out to the ring with Miss Elizabeth and Woman, and now I can at least appreciate how gorgeous these two women are. God, aren't they gorgeous? Oh my God, what's she breaking? I'll be right back. Eddie and Rick have a good match. They've had several good matches over the years. Not a lot, but they've had a few on pay-per-view, a couple on pay-per-view, a couple on television. They always had good chemistry. Eddie's high-flying, high-risk style and Rick's deliberate and methodical style. It was a good they complemented each other. The finish is Rick finally gets Eddie in the figure 4. And the referee's sitting there watching Eddie, waiting for a tap, waiting to see if the shoulders go down. And while he's not seeing Woman pull on Rick's hands to give him extra leverage from underneath the rope, eventually, Eddie just can't take the pain. He can't kick out, and he gets pinned in the figure 4, which is something strangely that happens more often than you'd think. Backstage, Mean Gene interviews the Giant, and the Giant just says words. I mean, I've always loved Paul White. The Big Show's great, but I mean, he was just green at this time. He's obviously green. I got a text message really long right there. I have no idea who just sent it. Up next in our semi-main event is the Outsiders, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, taking on Sting and Lex Luger. Lex Luger is the World Television Champion this time. Oh, God, hold on. I hate kids. Anyhow, I like this match. These are two teams with real-life friendships. Sting and Luger were dear friends in real life. Hall and Nash were dear friends in real life. And it plays into their tag team chemistry, I thought. The finish is when Luger goes for the torture rack and fucking Nick Patrick betrays the WCW. Chop blocks Luger. Hall makes the cover. Fast count. Nick Patrick has joined the NWO. And the Outsiders pick up their first official pay-per-view victory. The match at Bash at the Beach was officially no contest, even though, the NWO got the better hand here, clearly. By the way, this match goes 14 minutes, 36 seconds. The U.S. title match between Eddie and Flair went 14 minutes, 17 seconds. The last three matches are all really in the same, time length. I don't know if it was, kind of rushing through the show or just guys just playing it by ear, and this is what felt right. It's time for our main event, which means WCW, we bring out the Master of Ceremonies, Michael Buffer. And say what you want about Buffer, I miss him. I miss him doing the main events for pay-per-views. Every Nitro was too much. But, the pay-per-view main event, And bring out this guy who's famous outside of the business, do the introductions, always felt like a big deal, even if it kind of undermined your regular ring announcer. Ring announcer, like it was David Pinzer at this time. Main event time is Hollywood Hulk Hogan challenging the Giant for the World Heavyweight Championship with Jimmy Hart in his corner. Obviously, this match was booked because they wanted to put the belt on Hogan because of his, they wanted, NWO was a hot commodity. It was a good idea to put the belt on Hogan at this time. I 100% believe that. But the fact it just happened to be on Paul White, which means this was a rematch of what was probably the most infamous main event in wrestling, WCW history, but maybe wrestling history, the fucking monster truck match from Halloween Havoc, less than a year later. Oh, that pain was still fresh in people's minds, man. Hell, it's fresh in minds nearly 30 years later. But there's a lot of stalling, and it's a reminder that part of me always wants to say Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan. When people ask me who my all-time favorite wrestling heel is, and the only fault he had was he didn't really do the in-ring work. He seemed a little lazy in the ring and still let his ego, no, nobody get the better of me, brother, kind of bullshit get to him. That wasn't right. Granted, when he did put guys over, when he, tapped the Sting, tapped the Luger, got squashed by Goldberg, and even Goldberg kicked out of the atomic leg drop. Those all felt like big moments because Hogan was still being protected. But, he did not seem to have the... Hogan was never the greatest wrestler anyways, but he was a great showman, but he did not seem to have the gung-ho that he had in WWF, that he had in WCW, and that's just unfortunate. My favorite part of the match is when the Giant does the Hulk up and it doesn't work for him. Eventually, Hogan, NWO calls distraction. Hogan hits him with the belt, I think. Pins the Giant, and he's the new World Heavyweight Champion. After the match, they have a celebration. The Booty Man brings out a birthday cake for Hogan because I believe the next day would have been Hogan's 42nd or 43rd birthday. And Hogan's like, this is my best friend, brother, but you don't apply to join the New World Order. You get invited. And then they beat the shit out of him, spray paint NWO on the belt, and, for that iconic ending of Kevin Nash, Hogan holding the belt, or Nash holding the belt while Hogan sprays NWO on it, the first time that happened, kind of really made the show feel like something historic, something wrestling fans need to see. Anyhow, I overall really enjoyed this show. WCW do 3 more events, annual events at the Sturgis rallies. All would be main evented by Hulk Hogan. After this, they started calling them Road Wild, of course. And I think, yes, I'm going to be biased. The venue alone makes these fascinating television, these events. They don't have the greatest matches. Well, what that show does. Go back and watch one of WWF's biggest shows of all time, WrestleMania 3. There's 12 matches on that card. At least 5 of them could have been cut. Do you really remember Hercules Hernandez versus Billy Jack Hayes in the Full Nelson Challenge? No, you do not, because it wasn't worth remembering. I remember it because I'm insane. Anyhow, I recommend Hog Wild. I recommend all the Sturgis shows, and you can kiss my ass if you dislike it. I'm Jake Davis, and I'll catch you on the fly. I gotta go to work.